Tuscaloosa, a Town Square media station. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Are you guys sick and tired of spending $100 to $200 to $300 on a nice meal? If that's the case, then you need to go by a place that keeps a little money in your pocket. I'm talking about South's Finest Meats, which features Black Angus prime selection of steaks. You can find them at 3201 10th Avenue, right there in Tuscaloosa. South's Finest Meats is a company that believes in great customer service, fair pricing, and a place where you are appreciated. Go by and see them today right there at South's Finest Meats. You are locked in on the Stingray Show on the eve of the Sweet 16 and Alabama versus South Carolina on the Diamond. We will get in there and discuss all of that and be joined by Southeastern 14's own Chris Lee. That's all ahead on this edition of the Stingray Show. Guys, we've got a ton to cover, so let's get things rocking and rolling.
Hi, this is Tim Brando with a reminder. Those of you on Tide 100.9, look out. You're about to feel the buzz of Stingray.
This is Stephen Ray, a.k.a. Stingray, coming to you live from Tuscaloosa, Alabama.
I'm Heath Hopkins. I'm here in DeSoto County, Mississippi, right outside of Memphis, Tennessee. You know, Mark, I'm going to put you on the spot. Do you feel that responsibility to pay it forward and give some kid a chance coming up in the ranks, kind of like Tony did for you?
Why do you think I'm talking to Stingray tonight?
Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
No, I mean, look, no.
Hey, Stingray, here's the deal. When you get involved with Texas, it's like getting married to a stripper. and let me explain this. It looks good. It's kind of sexy on the surface. Yeah. But then you get the baggage, you get the drama, you get all that eventually comes with it. And that's what you get with Texas, and that's what the Big 12 learned.
And Heath, any thoughts on our show moving forward?
Hey, to everyone in Tuscaloosa listening here on Tide 100.9. With the Stingray Show, if you don't like it, you better learn to love it, because it's the best show going today, baby. Woo!
It is Girl Scout cookie time, and if you guys like Girl Scout cookies, Strange Brew Coffee House now offers Girl Scout cookie frappes at all locations, including Samoa, Thin Mint, and Tagalong. Delicious frappes are made with real Girl Scout cookies. Strange Brew Coffee House can be found at the University of Alabama campus, also up in Tupelo, Mississippi, if you are heading up there to Tupelo, or their home location over in Starkville, Mississippi. Go by and get a delicious Girl Scout cookie frappe today at one of the Strange Brew Coffee House locations. And ladies and gentlemen, with all of that, we want to welcome you inside the Hump Day edition of the Stingray Show. And Heath, how are things going with you on this Hump Day?
Oh, Stephen, man, it's been a crazy week. Hasn't been a bad week. Been a very productive week. But
Yes.
Stephen, we are a day away from the Sweet 16 and opening day of Major League Baseball.
Yes, sir.
It's the most wonderful time of the year. We got the Masters coming up. Spring football's gotten started. Everything's happening. You got the NFL draft coming up. You got the free agency going crazy. This is crazy. I love this time of year. And the weather is nice.
Yes. So, Heath, I do want to start off the show with a tragedy that happened yesterday morning up in Baltimore, Maryland, as obviously the Key Bridge collapsed after a large container ship collided with the bridge yesterday morning at around 2 a.m. Our thoughts and prayers are with everybody that is involved with that tragedy, as well as the family members of the people that are still lost, as well as the people, the Coast Guard, that are trying to find everybody. That is a very, very tragic situation for Baltimore, Maryland, and of course, this entire country.
Yeah, Stephen, it's sad. We don't understand everything. We just don't understand everything that happens, the good and the bad. when great things happen, like, why is all these great things happen to me? When the bad stuff happens, like, why does God let this happen? We just don't understand the big picture of things, and we're not supposed to, and we never will. And it's not science. It's just called faith. And, it's times like these that, you kind of reflect on your faith, and you understand that things aren't perfect. Life isn't perfect, but God's timing is. And, my heart goes out to that entire situation.
Yes.
There. I watched the video last night and just thinking about, what if you're getting ready to pull up on that bridge and it just disappeared on you? Or what if you just pulled off that bridge and looked in your rearview mirror and see it collapse and hearing that horrific sound? Stephen, I don't even know, was there any cars on the bridge that got thrown into the water?
There were people that were fixing a pothole, and they were on a break, and 6 of them are still missing, and as of last night, they are presumed deceased.
Stephen, I don't understand the good and the bad that happens in this world, and I'm not going to ever try to pretend that I'll know it and I can figure it out, because you're wasting your time. But yeah, definitely our thoughts and prayers go out to all those people who are suffering and dealing with loss.
So Heath, let's go on ahead and talk about sports, something that is uplifting. And I do want to start with 2 transfers that happened yesterday that were announced. The first one is, and this is a pretty big one here, South Carolina leading scorer Meechie Johnson enters the transfer portal after they were bounced in the first round of the NCAA tournament. Also, On 3 on Monday reported that Meechie Johnson is also considering testing the NFL draft waters. Your thoughts on Meechie Johnson leaving South Carolina and entering the transfer portal?
I don't understand people with short money. I mean, P. Diddy said it best. The transfer portal is what it is. I like it and I heavily dislike it all at the same time. I'm glad that these kids get an opportunity, but at the same time, I mean, this is just professional sports now. Stephen, I used to say this, and I've said it when I was a reporter back in my younger days. I thought reporters of any kind, it didn't matter if it was newspaper, print, internet, whoever. You don't bash a college kid. They're amateur. You don't bash them.
Right.
You don't call them out. You don't bash them. You just don't do that. You can't do that anymore because you know what? These are professional athletes. The gloves are off. If you're taking money, you're open to everything.
Yes.
All criticism and praise. You're open to it all. And if you don't like it, I don't care.
Another big transfer that happened yesterday. This guy started off at the program of Georgia with the Bulldogs. He transferred to Auburn. Auburn guard K.D. Johnson plans to re-enter the transfer portal after serving a couple of years there at Auburn, and now he is leaving to go elsewhere. Your thoughts on K.D. Johnson leaving Auburn?
He might be back. I mean, all these guys that enter the transfer portal are just asking for a pay raise. I mean, that's all it is. That's all it is. I mean, Meechie could be back. I mean, all these guys could be back. So I'm not too concerned about it. We'll see what happens. But I'll say this. What player doesn't want to go play at Auburn right now?
Right.
Auburn's Bruce Pearl is a huge name, is a massive name. I would say he's the biggest name in the SEC, maybe behind Coach Barnes at Tennessee. So, I mean, with that, Auburn's not going to have a problem filling that spot. So it's like, you know what? You're good, but we can go get great. Bye, Felicia.
So, Heath, I do want to transition briefly into the Sweet 16. And, Heath, can you tell me the common theme of these 5 teams? Illinois, North Carolina State, Gonzaga, Duke, and UConn. Can you tell me what is significant about all of those teams?
Oh, that's easy. I've never cheered for any of them. No, what you got, man?
Both the women and the men of Illinois, North Carolina State, Gonzaga, Duke, and UConn. Both men and women's basketball teams are in the Sweet 16 for those 5 programs.
That's phenomenal. Just amazing.
Yes.
You know, I am a person who I think we should support all sports, you know, and to see women's sports succeed, Olympic sports, men or women's sports, with Olympic sports succeed, I'm all for it. And so that shows me that they have a culture there of winning at that university, those 5 universities.
Yep.
And it shows that they care about their student athletes.
Yes.
So massive props and a tip of the cap and mad respect to those 5 schools. Name them again, Stephen.
Illinois, North Carolina State, Gonzaga, Duke, and of course the powerhouse UConn.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing.
So Heath, on that note, we got to take our first break, and when we come back, we are going to be joined by Chris Lee of Southeastern 14 to discuss a whole bunch of topics from college basketball to Major League Baseball opening day tomorrow. That's on the other side of the break. You're listening to the Stingray Show. We will be right back. And Heath, go Braves, chop on.
Oh, I'm not a Braves fan. No way, Jose.
Citizens of West Alabama, have you heard the news? The Bank of Moundville, which was established way back in 1907, offers personal loans of all sizes, unsecured and secured, with competitive interest rates. You can contact them today at 205-371-2227. Once again, that is the Bank of Moundville, 205-371-2227, or go by and see them in downtown Moundville. They are an equal housing lender and a member of the FDIC. Do you guys like to fish? I know I do, and if you have a pond or lake in your backyard that needs stocking of fish, you need to contact biologist Jeff Bagwell with Honey Hole Fisheries. He can help you stock your lake with bluegill, largemouth bass, and hybrid striped bass. You can get in touch with Jeff Bagwell and Honey Hole Fisheries at 205-799-0192. Once again, that is Honey Hole Fisheries, 205-799-0192. Contact Mr. Jeff Bagwell today and let him help you build the lake of your dreams. Do you guys dream about owning a home or a condominium down on the beautiful beaches of Alabama, say Orange Beach, Gulf Shores, or maybe even Fairhope? Then let me tell you about First Class Real Estate South Home Group's owner, Celeste Hagler. She has brokers down there in the beautiful beaches of Alabama to help you purchase the home of your dreams and to live where you love in the state of Alabama. You can contact Celeste Hagler at 205-861-5698. Contact Celeste Hagler today to help you live where you love in the state of Alabama.
Tide 100.9 traffic.
Tuscaloosa traffic now from the Townsend Nissan Traffic Center. Watch for an accident in the right lane eastbound on McFarland Boulevard before Rice Mine Road. If you're traveling east on Highway 82 from Airport Road to Jack Warner Parkway, it's a 4-minute delay.
When you see it.
More importantly, when she sees it.
FincherandOsmond.com.
McFarland Boulevard between Edgar's and local routes.
Alabama fans are all over the world, and we are too. Download the Tide 100.9 app right now in the App Store and Google Play, and take the Crimson Tide everywhere you go.
And we want to welcome you back inside the Stingray Show. Hope all is well with you. And now we are about to talk a little SEC baseball as well as the Sweet 16 with our guest this evening, Chris Lee of Southeastern 14. And as always, he is jam-packed with things to do. Chris, how are you doing outside of Nashville?
I'm good. It is a busy time. There's a lot to follow. You hope to just soak it all in and not miss anything. And that's why we get paid the big bucks, right?
That's right. So, Chris, I do want to mention it right off the top of the show. Yesterday or last night, it was announced that John Calipari will return for his 16th season up there at Kentucky. Your thoughts?
Not a surprise. I had talked to somebody on that beat the night before, said there will be a meeting tomorrow with he and Mitch Barnhart. He will be back. I think they're kind of in that spot. And look, it's just a hard situation for everybody other than maybe John Calipari to a degree. He seems like he's insulated himself against a lot of things. He's making a lot of money. Kentucky's in a spot where it would have to pay John Calipari $33 million to go away. And you start looking at the pool of coaches, as much as he has underachieved in the postseason, he's also got a pretty good tournament history in his back pocket before then. Pretty good would be an understatement. So the question becomes, okay, who is the next guy we would hire? To me, if you're going to get a clear upgrade over John Calipari, warts and all, it's a Billy Donovan, it's a Brad Stevens, it's somebody like that who, anytime there's a blue blood job open, those names come up. But those guys keep staying where they are. So how realistic is that? I don't know. Here's the point I'm making. You've got to size up what is the upgrade over John Calipari, and is that worth paying $33 million to a guy to do nothing? And I think that's the calculus, and I think that's one reason they are where they are with the whole situation.
Okay, so let's go on ahead and talk about it since you cover VandySports.com. They obviously made a brand new hire of one Mark Byington. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Your thoughts on the brand new hire of Vanderbilt men's basketball? Because, buddy, they desperately needed a change up there, and I think they got a good one.
Boy, desperately may be putting it mildly. I think they did too. People will ask me, is he the best coach they could have gotten? I don't know, but I think there was a list of best coaches, and I think he was definitely on there. We may look back and say, hey, he was clearly the best choice. We may look back and say, hey, they clearly should have hired Bucky McMillan or somebody like that. But I look at a search, I say, was your process good? I think for a change, Vanderbilt's was. Yeah. Did they hire a guy that has won at some difficult places? Look, you look at James Madison before him. You look at Georgia Southern before him and after him. Those are the two places he's coached. He got results that other people didn't. He's walking into a tough job at Vanderbilt. I think he's going to have support. They've got billionaires just sitting out there waiting to support a coach if they like him. I think they're going to like this guy. I've been hearing quickly escalating stuff on NIL numbers, and you never know what's true and what's not. But if it's close, I think Vanderbilt is certainly going to be in that upper echelon of NIL money in this league, and maybe even in the Power Five. Who knows?
So, Chris, I want to jump also from coaching to players. We had a couple of players announce yesterday that they are entering the transfer portal. The first one is Auburn guard K.D. Johnson out of Auburn. He plans to enter the transfer portal. Your thoughts on Johnson departing Auburn?
I think K.D. Johnson is a nice rotation player. I don't think he is a starting guard on a SEC title contending type team. He's a nice depth piece. Maybe he can go somewhere. I think he kind of had his own level at Georgia before he transferred to Auburn. He was more of a go-to type guy. I'll be interested to see what's in his head, and is he looking for a place where he can take on more of a starring role rather than a supporting one.
Okay, and the other one is South Carolina leading scorer Michi Johnson is entering the transfer portal, and he's also mentioned that he may dip his toes into the NBA draft waters. Your thoughts about Michi Johnson transferring from South Carolina?
I'm not a big NBA guy, but he does not strike me as an NBA prospect. I think he's a little bit older. He's been at Ohio State. This is the best year he's had at South Carolina. You never know what a player's situation is. Is it needing to be proximate to some place or needing out of a situation? But on the surface, to me, him leaving South Carolina does not make sense. I thought Lamont Paris gave him the keys to the offense a lot of nights. He won them a lot of big games. That's one, I don't know why he's leaving, but on the surface, that one looks like a guy to me that probably should consider staying put in what looked from the outside like a good situation. So,
Chris, let's go back to last week and talk about the NCAA tournament the first 2 days. The SEC had a horrible start and a horrible showing with Florida, Auburn, Kentucky, and South Carolina and Mississippi State getting all bounced out of the tournament after one game. Your thoughts on what happened on the first 2 days of the tournament to the SEC?
Well, first thought, I think some teams got some tough matchups, right? And I'm not making excuses for the SEC and putting it all on that, but Mississippi State got a Michigan State team that was preseason top 5 a lot of places, was top 20 in KenPom. Even though it didn't do a lot this year, there was a lot to suggest this was a top 20 type team. You don't expect to get that as your 9. I thought, let's see, who else? Auburn.
Yeah.
I feel like Auburn had a winnable matchup. It just did some knuckleheaded things. I was a little concerned about that. We had seen that at times this year. I know that Bruce Pearl likes to let his guys play loose and with an edge, but sometimes that comes back and bites you. It certainly did with the Chad Baker Mazara ejection. He was a key part of what they did. South Carolina, as soon as Oregon got N'Faly Dante healthy and playing, and he dominated the last 5 games of the regular season that he played in, if you include the conference and the conference tournament. I looked at KenPom, and they give an MVP for every game. He was the MVP for Oregon's last 4 games, and then they won the Pac-12 tournament. I saw him play the opening season game against Georgia, and I think he had 20-something rebounds and scored maybe 18 or 20 points from memory. He was not with Oregon all year. That was a team that was better than its record because he was available. Chalk that one up to another tough matchup. I feel like I'm missing somebody in there. There were 8 teams, and 6 of them got bounced by the end of the weekend. A&M was one that got bounced. I thought A&M, if it got a shot at Houston, which it did, would match up pretty well with them based on the earlier game. That's how that went down, went to overtime. Again, I know I'm leaving somebody out here. Tennessee won, Alabama won, but I think Kentucky. Oh, there's a story.
How can you forget about Kentucky, Chris?
Look, out of sight, out of mind, right?
Why?
I mean, I talked to a coach on another staff the day after the pairings were announced. I said, just give me a 14 or a 15 or somebody out there that nobody's talking about winning that could pull an upset. He said, we were thanking God we didn't get Oakland because they can slow you down with pace. They can shoot threes. They play a matchup zone that can be a little tricky. And I'm thinking, all right, Kentucky can handle a zone, but you don't see a matchup zone in the SEC every day. Stylistically, it was a bad matchup, and you saw what happened.
Heath, go ahead. I thought that was going to take longer. We got about a minute left.
Chris, we had Mark Godfrey on the show, and I asked you this, and I asked Mark Godfrey, and I went back and researched a little bit of it. Both of you are correct, but I made the statement of the SEC champion usually does not do good in the big dance. And Coach Godfrey talked about, he goes, it's such a massive disadvantage when you play your championship game on a Sunday. He goes, you've just played 3 games in 3 days, if not 4 games in 4 days. You're tired. And if you draw that Thursday game, you're really tired. If you draw the Friday game, you're still tired. And he said, traveling, going to a new arena, adjusting, doing all that, you're tired. And, I think we saw that with Auburn. I think they had their wonderful run in the SEC tournament. I think they sat on the laurels a little bit heading into that game. But your thoughts on the performance of Auburn? Did you think they were tired?
I don't know. I've seen Auburn. Auburn won the tournament. What was it, 2019, and then went on to a Final Four. We've seen Florida win the tournament under Billy Donovan, going to win a national title. I don't know. To me, that's I'm not saying that's not valid, but I've seen it overcome. To me, the bigger thing was just playing smart, and maybe the shooting that's been a concern for them. They played a Yale team that if you catch them on the right night, they're well coached. They got some experienced guys. That can happen. Mark Godfrey would know better than I would. He's been there and he's been in that situation. But I don't think it was just – to me, you've seen teams overcome in that spot before.
So, Chris and Heath, hold that thought because we were up against yet another break. And when we come back, we are going to jump into the Sweet 16 matchups. That's on the other side of the break. You're listening to the Stingray Show. We will be right back and continue our interview with Chris Lee. It is Girl Scout cookie time, and if you guys like Girl Scout cookies, Strange Brew Coffee House now offers Girl Scout cookie frappes at all locations, including Samoa, Thin Mint, and Tagalong. Delicious frappes are made with real Girl Scout cookies. Strange Brew Coffee House can be found at the University of Alabama campus, also up in Tupelo, Mississippi, if you are heading up there to Tupelo, or their home location over in Starkville, Mississippi. Go by and get a delicious Girl Scout cookie frappe today at one of the Strange Brew Coffee House locations. Are you guys in the mood for community goods and great barbecue? That's what you'll find at the Coker Market, located in Coker, Alabama, at the four-way intersection off of County Road 140. Their hours of operation are Wednesday through Saturday, 11 a.m. until 7 p.m., and their menu items include the Midnight, which is smoked ham, smoked pork, Swiss cheese, Creole mustard, mayonnaise, and a pickle, grilled on French bread. That sandwich is absolutely amazing. Make sure you go and check out the Coker Market right there at the four-way intersection in Coker for amazing food and community goods. Are you looking for a traditional banking experience with a banker who calls you by name? Then we invite you to get to know our friends at Bryant Bank. Bryant Bank customers enjoy online banking accessible around the clock to give you the freedom and flexibility to bank your way, all backed by the people you know and trust. Get to know your
$5 each at counselingservice.org/DBC, or maybe purchase at the door for $40. Proceeds benefit the Family Counseling Service of West Alabama.
The best station in the state, breaking down Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Are you looking for a traditional banking experience with a banker who calls you by name? Then we invite you to get to know our friends at Bryant Bank. Bryant Bank customers enjoy online banking accessible around the clock to give you the freedom and flexibility to bank your way, all backed by the people you know and trust. Get to know your Bryant banker at one of the 4 Tuscaloosa locations today. Bryant Bank, an equal housing lender, and as always, a member of the FDIC. Welcome back inside the Stingray Show. Our guest this evening is Chris Lee of Southeastern 14. And Chris, let's go on ahead and jump to the Sweet 16 matchups, and there's some pretty big ones coming up tomorrow evening with Alabama taking on North Carolina. Let's jump right into that one. Your thoughts on Alabama, North Carolina?
I think it'll be super entertaining. Alabama's been a top 10 computer team all year. It's a 4-point game, according to Ken Pomeroy, and that is all because Alabama can really, really, really score. As you guys know it, Mark Sears, you've seen him carry Alabama at times. They got through foul trouble in the first round, but look, North Carolina's going to have some star power, and it's a much better defensive team. Alabama's going to have to get some stops here and there, either that or it's going to have to shoot even better than it normally does, I think, if it wants to win this one. But I'm looking forward to that.
You know, what is one thing that Alabama can expose North Carolina in that matchup? Does anything jump off to you, Chris?
You know, I haven't watched North Carolina a lot. You guys know my world. I'm trying to cover a bunch of stuff at once. And so what I do is I basically limit that to, all right, what do I need to cover? And it's the SEC. And so I don't spend a lot of time watching other schools. No, look, I will listen to podcasts and things to familiarize myself with other rosters. Right. But I haven't watched Alabama. Here's what I can tell you. Alabama sometimes feels a little tempo proof because a lot of teams can try to slow you down and get you out of your game. We saw that happen maybe to Kentucky a little bit, but I think Alabama moves the ball so quickly and gets out in transition that they're a little harder to do that to. So I don't know. I mean, again, if Alabama plays a little bit of defense, it usually wins games. So I think a lot of times, I do think as I look at this, I just think this is a case where Carolina's got a little bit more talent with Davis and Baycott and those guys in spots that Alabama doesn't. But again, I think Mark Sears would be on the short list of most underrated players nationally. I don't think he got the respect nationally most of the season that he should have. And when you got a point guard like that and you play that fast and you were that potent offensively, some stuff can happen some nights.
All right, let's move to the other SEC Sweet 16 game, and that one is obviously Tennessee and Connect going up against the Creighton Blue Jays. Chris, do you see Tennessee moving on after their first two rounds? They had a shaky shooting performance, to say the least.
Well, look, I didn't get a lot of things right in my bracket, and so I'm not going to sit here and brag about this, but I will tell you that one of the few things I did get right is I had Creighton and Tennessee matched up in this spot. And when I was watching Tennessee's draw, I mean, there were two things that concerned me about Tennessee. I didn't like the way the Vols ended the season, losing at home to Kentucky, and then that absolute dud of a performance to Mississippi State in Nashville that I was there for, and they just looked listless.
Right.
The other thing was I wanted to see Tennessee get a 1 seed because I said all along is if you drop to a 2, you start getting matched up against teams that are problematic for you. The two teams that I'd circled all along, I said, I don't think Tennessee wants any part of Purdue. They played that once at Purdue won because Edey gave them fits, as he does most. And the other team was Connecticut because Connecticut's got bigs, plus it's just Connecticut. So what happened? Tennessee got a 2 seed, and it got stuck in the same region with Purdue. And also, it got stuck in a Sweet 16 matchup with Creighton. And Creighton's got Ryan Kalkbrenner, who's one of the best big men in the country. Creighton can shoot the 3 and shoot it efficiently. That's always something you see in the tournament. A lot of teams that get hot and win a lot of games are teams that bomb you from 3. And so on the surface, those are some things that you were Tennessee that you don't want to see. Oh, by the way, Creighton shot about 78.5% from the free throw line too. So there's all those things. Now, if you were Tennessee, it just depends on how you want to look at what the Vols did. I mean, all the stuff's out there about no team has shot this from the field and gotten to this point and all those things. And so on one hand, that brings up all the concerns we had with Tennessee about that offense going stale and not shooting in the tournament games, which has been a criticism of Rick Barnes for I don't even know how long now. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, Tennessee won in spite of that. You look at it, you say, I don't think they can possibly shoot any worse than they did. I don't know where I come down on that. That's a lot of stuff I've thrown at you, but I think that's what makes this one interesting is Tennessee almost by accident has to play better on the offensive end than it did. And everybody knows when Dalton Connect is going, they can beat anybody in the country.
Chris, I had 2 SEC teams in the Sweet 16 in my bracket. I got 11 of the 16 right. I only got one of the 2 right in the SEC. But I still got my entire Elite 8 I can still get right, Final Four, championship game, and champion. With that, how's your bracket doing?
I can still get all my teams to the Final Four. I couldn't say that about the Elite 8. Who did I lost BYU on the first day because I just didn't know who was going to come out of that late team.
I lost them too.
Region. But, yeah, I mean, I heard something that made me think about how to pick your bracket going forward. It talked about working backwards. In other words, figure out the teams that got the best path and pick those. And so that's kind of what I did this year. With that, I picked Duke. I picked Creighton, although I may regret not picking Purdue there. I picked Arizona, and I picked, of course, UConn for the Final Four. I picked to the easiest pick I had all tournament was taking UConn to win, just based on the personnel and based on what they did, based on the way they ended the season. This might be a year we look back and say UConn just wiped the floor with everybody. We've seen teams make that run, and this feels like the kind of team that maybe is about to do that.
Chris, I won't give away our ages, but I remember we're old enough to remember that crazy Duke UNLV game back in 1991, and UNLV was just skull dragging the planet. They were
my goodness.
They weren't beating people. They were embarrassing people. And I remember the nation was just in disbelief when Duke beat them. Who's Duke who could never get over the hump. And here they finally beat the Jerry Tartanian and the Running Rebels of UNLV. But with that, is UConn this year's UNLV?
I'd be more like something in between the two. I don't know. I mean, because it's
they're
got
they're not UNLV, but
well, I guess the point I'm making, they got high end, more recognized. Well, I mean, UNLV did too. I don't know. I don't know who they are. I just know they're dominant and they've done this before and they're very well coached.
Yeah, I agree.
Now, Chris, my final basketball question for you. We're switching to another tournament. I'm talking about the NIT tournament. The Georgia Bulldogs have officially cemented their name in the Final Four of the NIT tournament. How do you see the Georgia Bulldogs ending this season? Do they win it all, yes or no?
You would have to tell me who they've got first, because I hadn't paid a lot of attention to that one.
They will get the winner of VCU and Utah tonight.
Okay, Utah was a better team in the season. VCU's probably an even matchup. VCU's changed coaches since I last paid a lot of attention. That was kind of a blue-collar, muck-you-up kind of team. Mike Rhodes is no longer there as the coach. He's at, somewhere in the Northeast. I forget now. But in any case, I haven't paid a lot of attention to it, to be honest. I've always thought Georgia, most of the season, was a little bit better than people perceived. And then Georgia managed to lose, 6 or 7 in a row and lost every close game in sight. Maybe this is a return of Georgia being a little bit better than I thought. But to tell you I'm paying attention there would be a lie.
Oh, Chris, I'm going to change subjects because it's one of my favorites. Major League Baseball is almost here, brother. I cannot wait. I don't like opening day being on a Thursday. I don't like it. I think the Cincinnati Reds, and I'm not a Reds fan. I'm a Reds hater. I think the Cincinnati Reds should always open the season. What are you looking forward to most on opening day?
Well, first of all, I don't know how you can hate the Reds. I don't know what they ever did to you.
I'm a Cardinals fan.
Oh, well, okay. The little geographic proximity, perhaps. Yeah, I mean, look, I cannot wait for this. If people are watching, they see my hat. I'm a Braves guy. I am so excited for the season ahead. The Braves, I think, have got a shot to be good for years. I want to see if Chris Sale is healthy. They got pitching depth in the minors with A.J. Smith-Shawver. The Kellenic Duvall platoon in left is going to be interesting. Kellenic had an awful spring training last I looked. But, yeah, I mean, look, the clouds are clearing, the birds are singing, the sun is shining. That's kind of how I feel.
Women are prettier, toilet paper softer.
Oh, all of it. I'm a baseball guy first and foremost.
Yes. The world's a better place when the season starts.
Yeah.
So, Chris, I've got one more question for you, but we're up against a break. When we come back, I've got that last question for you, and then we will let you go. That's on the other side of the break. You're listening to the Stingray Show. We will be right back to finish up this interview with Chris Lee. For 75 years and counting, the Tuscaloosa Farmers Co-op has been serving West Alabama for all of their hunting, outdoor, gardening, and farming needs, as well as seasonal flowers and vegetables. And this year is no different. The Spring Co-op Plant Sale goes on from March the 25th through May the 11th. Pick any 5 for $20. Mix any varieties. That is the Spring Plant Sale at the Tuscaloosa Farmers Co-op. The Tuscaloosa Farmers Co-op is located in Northport, Alabama, just west of the Highway 82 and 43 intersection at 4301 McFarland Boulevard in Northport. Go by there and see them today for their Spring Plant Sale, March the 25th through May the 11th, only at the Tuscaloosa Farmers Co-op. Are you guys sick and tired of spending $100 to $200 to $300 on a nice meal? If that's the case, then you need to go by a place that keeps a little money in your pocket. I'm talking about South's Finest Meats, which features Black Angus prime selection of steaks. You can find them at 3201 10th Avenue, right there in Tuscaloosa. South's Finest Meats is a company that believes in great customer service, fair pricing, and a place where you are appreciated. Go by and see them today right there at South's Finest Meats. Citizens of West Alabama, have you heard the news? The Bank of Moundville, which was established way back in 1907, offers personal loans of all sizes, unsecured and secured, with competitive interest rates. You can contact them today at 205-371-2227. Once again, that is the Bank of Moundville, 205.
Your best bet for big wins is just minutes away at Birmingham Racecourse Casino, where you can be a winner too. Off I-459, exit 31 Derby Parkway.
Tide 100.9 traffic.
Tuscaloosa traffic now from the Townsend Nissan Traffic Center. If you're traveling north on Highway 69 from 15th Street to Mid-Larry Road, it's a 3-minute delay. Also on westbound Highway 82 from Jack Warner Parkway to Airport Road, it's a 3-minute delay. We've got some long-term road work at McWright's Ferry Road. The area is being extended down to Rice Mine Road. With your Tuscaloosa traffic now, I'm Lisa Bakke.
Follow the Crimson Tide on their journey to another national championship.
Touchdown, Alabama!
On your home for Alabama sports, Tide 100.9, and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
For 75 years and counting, the Tuscaloosa Farmers Co-op has been serving West Alabama for all of their hunting, outdoor, gardening, and farming needs, as well as seasonal flowers and vegetables. And this year is no different. The Spring Co-op Plant Sale goes on from March the 25th through May the 11th. Pick any 5 for $20. Mix any varieties. That is the Spring Plant Sale at the Tuscaloosa Farmers Co-op. The Tuscaloosa Farmers Co-op is located in Northport, Alabama, just west of the Highway 82 and 43 intersection at 4301 McFarland Boulevard in Northport. Go by there and see them today for their spring plant sale, March the 25th through May the 11th, only at the Tuscaloosa Farmers Co-op. Welcome back inside of our final segment right here on the Stingray Show. Our guest this evening is Chris Lee of Southeastern 14. But Chris, we are about to transition into a little bit of Major League Baseball. And we were talking earlier in the season with one Ben McDonald about this, and Heath and I have also talked about this. Last year in the postseason, only one team advanced after winning their division. The rest of them did not. In your opinion, is it better at the end of the Major League Baseball season to be a wild card team or to be there winning your division but have to take off 5 days?
Okay, I'm going to sidestep your question a little bit, but I think it's going to be useful. I think if we're asking that question, we got a problem. And I've been saying this, and maybe it's a little coming out of Braves fan bias and seeing how it's gone for my team the last 2 years. But I think if we're talking about that continually and we're seeing the playoffs go the way they go, I question, are we giving teams enough of an advantage for what they do during the regular season? If it is me, maybe your best of 3 to start or whatever, maybe that's all in the park of the higher seed. I think if you get that bye, I don't think a 4-game to 3-game advantage in your park is enough, especially when you're not playing ball. I think maybe you get the first 3 in your park, and then you go to 2 somewhere else, and then maybe you get the last 2. And I just think we need to do something. I know we try to all be even and say, well, let's split this 50-50 with home and road games, and we'll give the team that one more a 1-game advantage if we get to that point. But I don't know. I think there's something that could be done there. I think that the teams that are the higher seeds and get the buys deserve more for their regular season than to have a 1-game home advantage over a team you were 20 games better than in the regular season. Maybe that would solve some of it.
Okay.
Chris, looking back with the Braves won the World Series a couple of years ago, I think they finished with the 13th best record in baseball. They had the 13th best record, but they got hot late and they won it all. I think this is good for Major League Baseball. It keeps you guessing. Some people are like, oh, this is terrible. All the great teams are out. It's like, there's plenty of great teams in the playoffs. Everyone in the playoffs is a great team. Let it be.
I would nuance that a little bit, and then I've got to run. I would say that was also the year of the three different Braves outfields where injuries racked them, and the roster they had at the end of the year was different than the one they had at the beginning because of all the injuries. So, I think that was pertinent.
So, Chris, you just mentioned it right there. You've got to go because you were up against crunch time. So thank you, as always, for joining us. Enjoy covering the Sweet 16 and college baseball, and we will catch up with you this time next week, my friend. And let me also say this, Happy Easter.
Happy Easter to you guys. God bless you. Thanks, as always, for having me.
Absolutely, man. Stay safe, okay?
Take care, Chris.
See you guys.
Heath, as always, Chris Lee is such a nice guy and always an in-depth of knowledge no matter what sport you ask him to cover.
Southeastern 14 is such a great reference. If you're not a part of it, not checking it out, you are missing out. If you got a baseball series coming up, you're an Alabama fan and you got a baseball series, Chris can break it down for you on his website. He has got so much depth. He's got so much insight. He's got a ton of information he goes through daily. Southeastern 14, they're about to change the name to Southeastern 16.
Yes.
Wonderful, wonderful website. They're already doing numbers and things on Oklahoma and Texas. I've been doing it for the last couple of years. So excellent, excellent resource for your fan.
So, Heath, getting back to the NIT tournament, I do want to mention that not only is Georgia moving on to the Final Four, but also the other team that got snubbed that was also from where Larry Bird played, the Indiana State team right there is moving on to the Final Four of the NIT tournament. Heath, your thoughts about Georgia and Indiana State moving on?
I'm a Larry Bird fan. He played there in Terre Haute. That's where Indiana State is, the Sycamores.
Yes.
I haven't watched anything with Indiana State. I'm not going to watch anything with Indiana State. But for Georgia, basketball is the stepson program. They're the redheaded stepchild over there.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not getting any love. And Georgia will hardly ever spend money on basketball. They're making a fun little run. And I got a feeling most people who haven't watched a single basketball game all year for Georgia will probably tune in to their next game. And that's really something successful. I hope Georgia can build on that. But, Stephen, I'll say this. I get really irritated with one-dimension SEC programs. And what I mean by that, when you're just good in a sport, I don't really respect that university.
Right.
Take Kentucky years back. We're just good at basketball. I don't respect that. You look back a couple of years ago, Alabama was only good in football. I don't respect that. You're not spending the time, definitely not spending the money to do what's right. And when you have programs that are winning and going postseason, and including women's sports, that's the programs I respect because I was like, look, they're spreading the money and they're having huge success. I'll say this, Florida Gators a couple of years ago, man, they were winning national titles in football, basketball, softball. They got one in baseball. I mean, they were spreading out in a ton of Olympic sports, they were winning national titles in. And so, you look at a program like that, it's like, man, they're kicking tail over there. So, yeah, when you hear about, we're the best team in our division or in the SEC, and then you look at their women's sports and they're all at the bottom, and you look at the men's sports and they're, mid-card or less, I don't respect your program. Just don't.
Yes. So, Heath, if you are a basketball fan, this evening, UNLV, the Running Rebels of Las Vegas, will take on Seton Hall, and then following that game is VCU versus Utah. So we've got two NIT games tonight if you are an NIT and college basketball fan. And tonight will obviously be a primer to get us ready for the Sweet 16 matchups that start tomorrow. And let me remind you guys, Alabama plays tomorrow evening against North Carolina. That's going to be a barn burner for sure.
Yeah, I wish UNLV could get back to its, heyday and prominence they used to. If you guys don't know about UNLV back in the day, those guys were rock stars.
Yes.
Not only were they the best team in the country, they were just embarrassing folks tremendously. Yep. And I'll say this about UNLV back in that 91 team. They would never practice offense in practice.
Yes.
Their defense was so superb and excellent that all their points were coming off fast breaks. All their points were coming off dunks. And so that's what the impressive thing about UNLV. But with that, you know what? I wouldn't mind seeing the Running Rebels get a little success. I'm pulling for Georgia in the NIT, but I wouldn't mind seeing the UNLV get a little love there.
So, Heath, I do want to say this before we sign off. We have a little housekeeping note. Tomorrow evening, Alabama baseball starts at 7 o'clock. So the Stingray Show will squeeze in a show before Alabama, South Carolina. And in order to do that, we're going to bring on Chris Phillips of SEC Unfiltered to talk all things South Carolina, to preview that matchup on the diamond. Heath, that is tomorrow night on the Stingray Show. We will see you then with Chris Phillips of SEC Unfiltered to get the insight of South Carolina baseball before they take on the Crimson Tide this weekend. We will see you guys tomorrow evening right back here on the Stingray Show at 6 o'clock.